Most people understand that there's basically two different kinds of graphics. You have vector graphics and raster graphics. Vector graphics are mathematically based. We have vectors in programs like Illustrator and AutoCAD. Photoshop is capable of making vectors, but it's not really what it does best. It's more of a raster graphic program. There are a lot of big advantages to vector graphics, and one of the main ones is that we have really clean-looking, smooth lines, regardless of whether they're curves or angles or horizontal or vertical lines. They always look pretty good and pretty clean, and that's why they're great for programs like AutoCAD or Revit or Illustrator. And here you can see I've listed out formats that are specifically vector programs or vector file formats. So AutoCAD, Illustrator, PDF, EPS, DFX, and Flash or Shockwave Flash. You can go directly from a program like AutoCAD into PowerPoint using a format like EPS, and that'll maintain your vectors in a really nice way. Or you can go directly to a PDF, and that also will maintain really clean-looking graphics for AutoCAD. However, as soon as you rasterize those images, maybe for a presentation, by taking them into Photoshop, or by using any of these file formats, like bitmap, TIFF, JPEG, GIF, or PNG, here's what happens. Anytime you rasterize an image, there's two possible things that can happen. Hopefully you remember to anti-alias, and this is what you get with anti-aliasing. You get a graduation between your graphic color and your background color, which is created by pixels of different colors. Or if you forget to anti-aliasing, which is generally a terrible idea, you end up with this stair-step effect because you're going directly from the graphic color to the background color. And that generally just gives you really ugly text and really kind of what is generally referred to as crunchy looking graphics or jaggies or things like that. It's not quite the same thing as pixelated. Usually when we say pixelated, we're referring to what happens when you overcompress a file. But there is a relationship that can happen because with vector graphics, you are in a resolution independent environment, meaning you really don't have to worry about resolution. As soon as you go over to raster graphics, then that changes, and suddenly you do have to worry about resolution issues. You have to think about what resolutions are going to print best, what resolutions are going to display best on a computer screen or in another digital environment. So if you're working with, for example, an AutoCAD file, and you want to export this, if you are going to a program like PowerPoint, just do it in EPS. Or if you have the opportunity to save it in a PDF format for a presentation, that works really well too because it'll maintain nice clean edges. If you don't have that choices and you don't really have any choice but to rasterize your artwork, then some options are better than others. Here I have an AutoCAD graphic, and I'm going to use the Save for Web feature because sometimes you may not have much choice but to use a rasterized format. And this is kind of a nice feature. You've probably seen it before. But you have a choice between JPEG, GIF, and PNG files. JPEG really isn't the best choice, although often people think it is the best choice for line work art like this, or line work graphics. But really, JPEGs are really better for photographic images for a number of different reasons. When you have something like this that's more basic lines, you can go with GIF. Now you'll see that it loses the background as long as I have the transparency box checked, but if I take that off, I go back to a white background. And you can see that the color table is pretty small here. There's enough grays in there to give me some good anti-aliasing. I could probably drop that off a little bit. The color selection box says 256, but I don't need 256 for this image. I could go to 8, and then that would probably still give me pretty good anti-aliasing in my image. If I went down to 4, It's hard to say. You really have to look at it very carefully to see if that's enough of a gray range. Just having 2 grays probably, probably won't give you good anti-aliasing, but you'd have to take a close look and see. I'd probably leave it on 8. Your other choice is PNG. I prefer to go to the PNG 24. I think it is going to give you a better result. It doesn't throw out as much of the information, and it will still give you pretty clean looking lines. So if you really need to compress for the purposes of rasterizing a CAD image, that would probably be a pretty good choice. When you have a photographic image, then that's kind of a different situation. JPEG is probably going to be a good choice in that case. With JPEGs, you have to choose a quality level. You can usually drop somewhere in the 50 to 75% range and still have a pretty good image. When you start dropping really low, that's when you're going to start to see your pixelization happening. And the Safer Web feature lets you view the original alongside a compressed version, in other words, the output version, so that you can compare the two. And here you can see there isn't a whole lot of difference, even down at 35%. But with some images, you could very well see a big difference. On the other hand, if you go to something like GIF for this image, you can see that because it's a photographic image, it does become pixelized when you go into a GIF format. If you go into PNG, it's better, but I can still see a little bit of pixelization happening, but it is a much better choice in this case than the GIF file. PNG doesn't throw out as much information. It still gives you a fairly small file, in this case 439K, but compared to the original image, which is 2 megabytes, that's quite a difference. Okay, so those are the basics, and I hope that helps a little bit in terms of making decisions about when to use vector graphics and when to use raster graphics, and when to choose these different file formats and which ones work best for various images.